if someone spends tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars to attack the network, they should fail. Ethereum mainnet will scale probably around 10 times from the beginning of this year all the way to the end of next year. ZK technology finally arriving, and it's maybe not final form, but a very, very mature form that is extremely promising and came almost as a surprise that it arrived so early. By introducing trustlessness, you reduce risk. So institutions are paying less money and can be more reliably competing on the markets without worrying about the infrastructure.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Paul Brody. I am the chairman of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, and I'm here with my good friend, Pooja.
Hi, I'm Pooja Ranjan. I'm the president at ECH Institute, and together we are doing the final and concluding episode on the Fusaka Files.
And this is actually a special episode. So we've done a few episodes previously where we talked to individual authors of specific proposals that are going to go into this Fusaka upgrade hard fork, which is going to happen, I think it's on the 3rd of December now. But today we have a special guest, which is Tomasz Stańczak, who is one of the two co-heads of the Ethereum Foundation. And instead of talking overly technical, although as a past chairman of Nethermind, like you could probably recite all 11 EIPs from heart, we're not going to ask you to do that. It's not a memory test. Instead, I would really like to use this as a way to talk about the super high level in language that's really important for enterprise users, some big picture stuff. And I want to start with asking your take on a theme that's coming up over and over again. And I think it's really important for businesses, institutions, governments, which is talk to us about what is the meaning and the importance of this phrase, credible neutrality.
Credible neutrality. Well, I was wondering if I get this definition right, because I sometimes intuitively build it for myself and I follow. So credible neutrality for me means that you can always believe that the protocol will, by its design, behave in a way that doesn't favor any users or solutions. So you can start using Ethereum protocol, and always trustlessly assume that the protocol will be neutral for any market participants. And that the last part maybe is very important for institutions. It says that you practically have fair execution on the protocol by design and enforced by the protocol and all the security providers for the validators. So they make sure that transactions are not censored, so they have fair access to the block space, and that the pricing systems for transaction fees are credibly neutral for all the market participants and so on. That's what you say. Usually we enforce it through either cryptographical or crypto-economic mechanisms. So you think about the mechanism design of the entire market as credibly neutral for all the participants.
That's hugely important. I fully agree with you. This is, when I talk to our enterprise clients, one of the things that they care most about is this. They don't know how to put it in quite the right terms, but fundamentally at heart, I've heard it put away in a couple of ways that are very important. Number one, they don't want to be funding their competition, right? They don't want to be operating in an environment where their efforts are contributing to the success of the long-term success of their competition instead of themselves, right? And so you're not favoring somebody, right? And obviously, if you're operating on a chain that's run by a single company, that company is the primary beneficiary of transactions on that network.
Even consortia chains that fold, that very often they tend to lean towards the strongest participants, strongest builders of the consortia chain.
They do. And one of the things that we've observed over and over again is that consortia chains, they struggle because of infighting over, people are constantly trying to game the mechanics to favor themselves. And that's really problematic.
And that's what I say on Ethereum mainnet. It's a public chain with thousands of participants. All of them have different interests, but what they care about is that the chain delivers that neutrality, that whatever they want to build, it's not blocked, it's not prevented. They can just fully express their business on chain.
The second thing that I've heard people talk a lot about is this L2 value proposition, which is that if you do want to build your space, you can do that, but still the base layer interactions at the L1 are fully credibly neutral. So
Right.
Sure.
And if I can add a question on top of that, when we are looking into this Fusaka upgrade, most of the people are talking about the PEERDAS and layer 2 proposals which are getting inside the Fusaka upgrade.
Which is great because it's a headliner. And by design,
Yes.
people should have headlines about the headliners.
That's right. So my question is on the future of Ethereum, do we see Ethereum as the base settlement layer for most of the blockchain that exists? Because I know people trust Ethereum and that's why we have this kind of decentralization.
Yes, because nowadays when you go to institutions, they will tell you why they choose Ethereum or what is convincing for them on the properties that are Ethereum properties, which is security of the chain. It's over 10 years of zero downtime. And it's not just over 10 years, it's since the beginning, since the very beginning, no downtime on the chain, 100%, all the time up, servicing transactions, never stopping. So the security, the censorship resistance, which is like firm, uninterrupted market access, privacy solutions for the chain. So there are multiple different primitives for the privacy for institutions. So because of that, the institutions feel that this is blockchain that is requiring less trust. So it means that it's lower risk chain. So it's simply cheaper to hold assets and to transact on the chain in the context when you start calculating the risk cost. And then L2s, as you mentioned, they are opening space for customization, for innovation, for more control. So it's the L2s that, in a way, act a bit like consortia chains if needed or private chains, but then always they borrow the security characteristics of layer 1 of the Ethereum mainnet. And that's very, very valuable because cost of securing network on Ethereum is significant. There's tens of billions of dollars paid to the validators as rewards for participating in verification of every single transaction, of verification of correctness of consensus, achieving consensus in time, and providing that security against arbitrarily, well, not arbitrarily, but like very, very well quantified levels of attacks, which can be in the area of if someone spends tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars to attack the network, they should fail and credibly lose the investment into attack. So like if they spend $100 billion, they should be at a loss of $100 billion just because they tried to attack the network. So all of that comes for institutions to say, oh, so if we go there, it means that not even an attack of a country trying to disrupt infrastructure will interrupt our operations interacting with other institutions.
So seamless hard forks, exceptionally high uptime. It does not happen by accident. Talk to us just a little bit about like what are the things that the Ethereum Foundation does that are designed to lay this groundwork for maintaining that high uptime, right? This is not one of the things I talk to our clients a lot about is like in an environment where you're planning to hold and manage trillions of dollars in assets, you do not want a move fast and break things mentality. You want a move carefully, sustain uptight mentality. That doesn't happen by accident. Talk about some of the things that the foundation is doing for the ecosystem as a whole to make sure that continues into the future.
So I think it's ecosystem has the culture of moving carefully, and foundation takes the responsibility of allowing the ecosystem to move as fast as possible, but also providing the security testing and so on. Why do I say as fast as possible? Because we provide a coordination mechanism. So you have the hundreds of core developers and researchers, which are independent from the foundation, that participate in the transparent governance process where you can go to a website like forecast.org and track all the past recordings of all the conversations, transcripts. You can see discussions about the future of the network, about the potential vulnerabilities, challenges, ideas for addressing the requirements of the many different industries. Now, to support work of all of those researchers and engineers and governance participants, Foundation tries to provide coordination work, builds the network of people that can work together, builds tooling that accelerates work tooling for developers, or maybe even nowadays more often coordinate the efforts of building the tool. So this is public goods funding. Very often tools for developers, for governance, are not really something that is easily monetizable. So we identify places where we can accelerate the work on Ethereum, we can secure Ethereum more and see what the market will not fund by itself. So you cannot rely on venture capital, you cannot rely on monetization from products, but there is very, very important public goods work that has to happen. So supporting protocol security, and supporting coordination to move fast with delivery of the necessary network upgrades that take advantage of the latest innovation in technology and cryptography. And this is what Foundation does. And slightly on the side of this, apart from protocol support, there's also ecosystem development. And this is something that for many institutions may be seen as like some kind of business development work, but we act maybe less as business developers, but accelerators, coordinators of other business developers. So we move in, we connect people with each other, and we move out, and we create spaces for people to meet, to collaborate, to discuss. One big part of our efforts is the annual conference, DevCon, DevConnect, that brings various industries together, talks about the innovation, talks about protocol, and so on.
How is it decided if a particular EIP is going to be in a hard fork?
Oh, this is a very interesting process. So first of all, for the EIP to appear, you have to have some kind of trigger of the idea. So it can be either innovation through the research on cryptography, on mechanism design, on the engineering ideas. So it may arrive from the publications of technology providers or from the discussions of the website called If Research, probably many other websites. It might be a research paper from prestigious university. So that idea then allows someone to compose the improvement proposal, an EIP, or maybe request for comment, ERC, which is standard. It doesn't have to go through the same process. EIP now, if it's submitted, can take advantage of support from Ethereum Foundation and others helping to edit it properly and add all the
And just to be clear,
EIP
for institutions that are business users, EIP stands for Ethereum Improvement Proposal.
Exactly. So this is entirely open process. Anyone can submit EIP. I had the situations of discussing that with institutions that were asking, how does the governance process look? Is it entirely open? Does it mean that we can participate? And I said, yes, of course. So you can not only submit EIPs, you can submit ERCs, you can also participate in the calls, suggest everyone we would like to participate in the discussion about which EIPs to include. Usually, as more of the institutions themselves feel that the compliance departments wouldn't allow them to participate. But we invite everyone who has the EIP process, who has the experience, understands that. So it's based on the perceived meritocracy, and you have the calls. So the calls happen nowadays twice per week. So the ACDT calls are dedicated to delivery of the current forks, so testing, feedback on verification of coordination with tooling providers where they identified any risks, last moment risks in the deliveries of the new forks. The other aspect is the ACDE, ACDC, so there's like execution consensus client meetings, which bring together all the core developers and kind of product managers of the client team. So those who build the software that is used for running the network, they come together with researchers and start discussing the EIPs that were proposed. So EIPs go through various stages and are discussed for sometimes much ahead, for maybe inclusion 2 or 3 network upgrades ahead. So it might be that we start discussing EIPs that will come in 2 years to the network, right? And at some times during the year, it's established that there is this final discussion around the inclusion for the upcoming fork network upgrade, which might be 6 months from now, let's say, or 9 months from now, or more or less.
And how, who makes that final decision of what's going in and what isn't?
And it's interesting because you have various theory of governance, and if it was very formal voting, then it's a gameable system, right? So you say, oh, those people are voting. Maybe you have the entire theory of auctions, of bribes, and the truth is you have rough consensus. You have multiple groups of people, institutions coming, expressing what they feel, and through that discussion that is open and visible for everyone, there is a gradual emergence of clarity of what should go into the network upgrade. It works, and the open source, transparent governance model, it works. It's a tough process. Sometimes it's a very difficult discussion on what should be. And it means that rough consensus always means that there will be people that are very disappointed with the delays of the network upgrades that they would like to see. But generally, something that will be agreed on, you should be able to easily publish that everywhere and see no more severe pushback on what you've discussed, what you decided, or maybe at least the one that you see has already been discussed by everyone else and decided to be. Now, Foundation does help to coordinate also the discussion process. So invite everyone that may want to express, negative opinions. Invite everyone that cares about accelerating or delaying the process, maybe because of lack of readiness of some important part of the network tooling ecosystem. Maybe accelerating because there are some security risks if there is no delivery on time, and so on and so on. So the coordination is very, I guess, multiple aspects to it. It's like bringing the right people in, helping to keep the tone of the conversation, bringing very detailed documentation, but also on top of it, providing testing of all the different combinations and providing feedback whether testing identified some issues with the design of the EIPs.
Now, I want to add, because the Ethereum Foundation is not the only entity here. In fact, Pooja's organization has a big role to play. And Pooja, maybe just talk for a minute about what the ETH cat herders do and how you're part of this process. Because I think there's this sense when I talk to people in the enterprise space that Ethereum is like some kind of monolithic entity. The Ethereum Foundation is almost like a corporation directing all of these things. And it's really not like that. It is many nonprofit, public goods focused organizations that are working together. And so just for once in this process, let me turn the spotlight on you, Pooja, and just talk about like the Ethereum cat herders, what you do and how this fits together, because it is, people need a little bit of understanding of some of the nuance behind this, that it's not monolithic.
That's very great of you. Like, you brought it up, and thank you, Tomasz. Like, you literally summarized the EIP summit that we had here in the Dev Connect today. So the Ethereum governance process is very open and anybody can participate. A few days ago, I was talking to someone from the enterprise, and they want to propose something which is not in the near roadmap of Ethereum upgrade as such. That particular thing is still in the research work, like ETH research. And they wanted to propose an EIP, and they said, who will propose the EIP for me? I said, nobody, you have to come and propose it. He said, can I do that? I'm not a developer. I'm not from Ethereum Foundation. Yes, you can do that. Anybody who has an idea, willing to support, willing to make a standard can join us. And that's where Ethereum cat herders comes into picture. What we do is we organize an EIP editing office hour every Tuesday around 1600 UTC to invite those new authors to learn about the process. They understand how EIP should be documented, how it can be moved forward in stages. And then, Tomasz, you very well mentioned about ACDT, ACDC, and ACDE. So in all these calls, we make decisions, and there are so many participants of decision. It's not the client dev only. Tooling teams are adding their input, and communities are adding their input. So there are so many calls that is happening around Ethereum protocol that people can join in order to participate in the EIP process as well as in the network upgrade process. We would love for them to come and find the agenda for upcoming meetings in Ethereum/PM GitHub repository. That's where all the breakout room meeting information is available and all meetings that happens around. Well, Tomasz, continuing this discussion, I would be curious to hear from you, is the future roadmap of Ethereum. If it is up to you, what would be the 2 features, or one, what you can prefer, whatever it is, that you would like to see in coming network upgrades in next 2 to 5 years?
I pay a lot of attention not to express my opinions on what I would like to see in the future forks. Really, so much of the effort that I'm putting into talking to lots of institutions, builders, and asking them what they care about. The moment I would express my opinions, just somehow might be given too much of the weight. And it's very important for me to stay neutral, deliver as representative report about what people need, what is important to see. So what I can say is that this year, after having all of those conversations, we said it's important to see scaling, and it's scaling of the mainnet and scaling of layer 2, supporting the scaling of layer 2s, and the features on interoperability, user experience, interop and UX. And that allowed people to shape Fusaka network upgrade to deliver exactly that, and also to shape the next upcoming upgrade, the Amsterdam, to scale even further. And now when we see the roadmap, we see that the Ethereum mainnet will scale probably around 10 times from the beginning of this year all the way to the end of next year. We are seeing dramatic progress on ZK VMs that will support us with scaling further into 1000x ranges. And we also see a lot of effort into the interoperability features, different approaches, but because we delivered that message that that's what industries are asking us about, that's what layer 2s are asking for the Ethereum mainnet as a protocol, as a platform. So everyone adjusts, and having the researchers and engineers to start reacting to what is needed after receiving feedback was the most important thing about focusing the efforts of the foundation and ecosystem this year. And I'm very happy that we see it. And the moment I would start talking about my personal preferences, I could really do a lot of harm. And this is also a bit of the role of Ethereum Foundation that we discussed here, about that foundation itself tries to the best way represent what is needed instead of being overly opinionated. We do have teams that are specifically researching some areas or engineering particular aspects of networking and so on. They act a bit like the one of many researcher clients teams. They are a bit more opinionated, but this would be 20, 30 people after 200 that have very specific roles of delivering the very specific designs of EIPs. So here it's more of the expertise of our researchers. But the moment you go to coordinators, they would just help to have discussions. And then coming back to your questions, what I want to see is that we deliver what we promise that we'll focus on. So scaling interoperability. On the interoperability side, we talked about OIF, EIL, so frameworks for expressing intents for the trustless execution across multiple chains. On the scaling side, we see mostly ZK VMs talking about if proofs, massive scaling opportunity, and ZK technology finally arriving. And it's maybe not final form, but a very, very mature form that is extremely promising and came almost as a surprise that it arrived so early, and we are extremely excited about it.
So in this multi-dimensional area, one dimension of consideration is collecting input from enterprise and other projects, what they would like to see in Ethereum's roadmap.
It is, and it also cannot be, like very, very a formalized process, because even here we're trying to arrive at the rough consensus. So there's lots of legitimacy, expertise judging, lots of meritocracy-based participation, and we have to somehow react to what the world needs, and there's so many different cases. You have financial institutions, you have the charity organizations, the centralized organizations, you have cypherpunk ecosystems that talk about privacy a lot and the trustlessness. But all of this, it seems that there is definitely alignment between institutions and the values of Ethereum, that by introducing trustlessness, you reduce risk. So institutions are paying less money and can be more reliably competing on the markets without worrying about the infrastructure, and we're delivering some really positive change to society that everyone can take advantage of.
Tomasz, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This brings us to the end of the very last episode of the Fusaka Files. And even though nobody ever said this in the history of the world, that we need another podcast, there is a reasonably good chance that Pooja and I will be back together for, we can't call it the Fusaka Files anymore, but there'll be Glamsterdam. And when we do Glamsterdam, maybe we'll even shed some light on the secret process for how these upgrades are named.
Awesome. That is great. Thank you, Paul. It was really lovely talking to you, uncovering the enterprise use cases of a EIP side was really great, and I had a lot of fun. Learning more about enterprise use cases of these EIPs would definitely help more people to get involved. And Tomasz, we really appreciate you taking out time and joining us here today on the final episode of the Fusaka File. But this is not the end, and we will be coming back with the Glamsterdam file. Before we get into the Glamsterdam area, please join us on the live stream of the Fusaka network upgrade to learn more about EIPs. PEEPanEIP are there and Fusaka File are there. So yeah, thank you so much once again. Thank you, Tomasz.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having
Yeah.
me.